All right. I think we're here, and I can't tell, but I think this is legit the first time that I think we've gotten our shit together somewhat and really have put forward a little bit of effort. We want our people to see what we're doing, hear about who we are, and we're here. So we call ourselves the Flex. I already messed up the first
Yeah.
time. We call ourselves the Flex Network.
Yeah.
I've got a little intro song. I will probably be editing that afterwards into whatever I'm doing here, but no promises at all. And so, introduce yourself, Michael. This is my
Yeah.
friend Michael here. We both we both have a great idea of what we want to do. We want to definitely be known. We want our voices heard. We're bringing this together because we have dreams and aspirations of at least being on the forefront of cutting edge news, reviews, just our voice on any topic. Um, and we just believe that, people would have fun listening to us. I think I have a really fun time listening to podcasts, and I really like when I find a podcast that I like that I don't feel like a lot of people listen to, and then I'm like, dang, these guys are doing good. That's fun to listen to, and I feel like the whole world's kind of becoming that way. So, give me a little bit about yourself, Michael.
Yeah. So, first of all, you didn't even introduce yourself. I'm pretty sure you just started talking. But yeah, like he said, my name's Michael. His name is Matt. Yeah, we are the Flex Network, and we're just trying to bring some maybe a little bit of creativity to podcasting, a little sports podcasting, a little we might talk about food from time to time. We might talk about hopefully not politics or religion too much, but I'll the reason we're a Flex Network is because I'll be doing some stuff on the side that's just me and some people that I'm interviewing, and Matt will be doing some um, he'll be going into just the deepest, darkest parts of fantasy football that like normal average fans like myself who play fantasy football aren't really like into it on that level. I'm just in like a church league so that I could like talk crap to other people that I go to church with. But Matt himself plays competitively, puts money into it, all of those things. But for myself, I don't do that. I just want bragging rights, and that's ultimately all I care about. So yeah, like I said, with me, it'll be I'll be interviewing some people on the side. If you care to hear stories from former athletes who come from kind of a Christian background or any of those things, those are some of the people that I'll be interviewing that are kind of walk the same path as me or have interesting stories. And ultimately, that's what I care about. Is I care about the interesting story. I want people to hear stories about people who have gone through some crazy things or experienced some interesting things in their life. So we're just kind of bringing this all together. Matt and I have known each other since middle school. We went to the same middle school. We didn't like really hang out in middle school, I don't think, but we just know each other from high school mostly. And after high school, we've always kept in touch. Always kind of been not, I wouldn't say really good friends, but at least we would communicate with each other. And now we're really good friends.
Yeah,
So
we're
yeah,
definitely really good friends now, and I
yeah,
think we so like this podcast, like obviously when you talk about like spanning the sports world, I mean there's a lot of topics that like uh we want to get into, but like I also just don't have the same like affinity for a lot of sports anymore. Like I don't really enjoy watching college basketball, or I don't enjoy watching college football, but I do enjoy watching top prospects, and I enjoy commenting on them. I enjoy analytics. I enjoy stats. I enjoy the combine and the draft more than I enjoy probably the national championship game. And Michael, you can also turn your mic off when you're adjusting it.
oh,
Oh
like
God.
that, like dropping it like that.
you could turn the whole entire volume down and then do whatever you want with the mic and then turn it back
it's
up.
too late now. I already messed up the worst possible way that you could mess up. So
Literally mic dropped.
yeah,
No, that's fine. Yeah.
yeah.
No,
I'm an
but
idiot. I think I set this thing up a little bit backwards, but I think we're okay now. I'm done screwing up for the rest of the night. I'll leave that to you from this point
so
forward.
I would say like our biggest for me right now, um I football 100%, like all things football, but fantasy football, pro wrestling, and just being able to shoot the shit on a lot of different topics. I think what's kind of unique about us is like I feel like people want to listen to people who are just being real about a subject. I wouldn't necessarily call myself an expert, but I think I got a lot of good takes on things. And when I'm at parties or festivals or hanging out with all my friends, like I generally have a pretty open mind about things. So like I can get into conversations with people relatively easy. And I think myself, I would call myself a conversationalist, but we're just gonna bring that to you. But getting back to that, so I'm Matt, he's Michael, we are the Flex Network. The Flex Network, like that.
Yeah.
Boing,
Yeah.
Sheboygan.
Yeah.
But today we're gonna really we're on the road to WrestleMania. I think pro wrestling's definitely one of a big driving force in my life right now, just because I did fall out of it for a little while, mainly like during high school, just because I was out there trying to do my own thing and trying to win a state title wrestling amateurly myself. Didn't happen, but I was just too tied up with that and girls, and just didn't. It's kind of tough with anything. It's just like any TV show. Like I've watched Stranger Things season 1, but I'm waiting to watch season 2, and then now season 3 is coming on, and it's like after a while, it's like in order to like be into episodic TV, it's like you can't really like just pick back up in the middle of season 2. Like you kind of have to like go back to the beginning and rewatch it just to be there. But so it's like it took me a long time to jump back into wrestling. But what I really found like fascinating is a lot of the podcasts about wrestling and listening to that, and then giving Royal Rumble another chance like 2.5 years ago or something like that, where man, it was just I watched back the Royal Rumble, and that's my favorite pay-per-view, and I just thought, man, I need to just keep watching this, because if you don't like decide to just keep watching it religiously, then like you can't understand the storylines. And if you don't understand the storylines, then you really have like no emotional tie to it. And so if you're fucking sorry, that's one thing I actually said to myself that I didn't want to do, is cuss too much, because I remember listening to some of our old podcasts when we first started, and it feels like every other word's the F word. And so
from you, yes, not from me. But
right,
yeah,
right,
go ahead.
right. Well, your first line leading up into this was that you're pro Christian anything, and so yes, I understand that you didn't lay the F bomb down very much.
But on another note, I also come from a place where it's like if if you drop a F bomb every now and then, like I don't care, like be yourself. It's just as long as we're not like having a like F bomb every 3 words or something, then I'd be like, what's really going on? Are you okay, Matt? Like
Yeah, right.
you take your medicine today?
Yeah, yeah. You know what? Most of my medicine that I take is the cold hard truth, baby.
Oh,
And
okay.
that's what we're doing. All right.
right.
So basically, long story short, we're on the road to WrestleMania. I think our audio quality, we're gonna figure this out. We're getting back on YouTube, and that's where the next one's gonna be. And honestly, if this one's a throwaway podcast, that's fine too, because we got more week before WrestleMania comes up. But here we go. So this is a on Smackdown recap from last week. Big things happening on Smackdown from this week. Notably, we're gonna start with Raw, but notably, obviously, Asuka for the time. I would like to start with Raw, but it's really hard to deny like Becky Lynch and what's going on with Becky right now. And I think not just Becky, but everything on the SmackDown brand is honestly probably the most entertaining stuff that's going on as far as WWE goes with like storylines. But Becky Lynch, I mean, how do you feel about Becky Lynch? How do you feel about the idea that Becky is like the next Stone Cold Steve Austin?
Well, I'll tell you when the whole movement of like the man first started, I was like not down for it. I was like, man, this is kind of stupid, her calling herself the man and all that stuff. And really when that first started, my views on like big time intergender wrestling. I just think that it's kind of lame, but that's just me. But I didn't like it at first. And then I realized I was like, man, she's like way, way over. Like everyone loves her. And so, anytime you get momentum, whether you're a baby face or heel, you're getting heat or the crowd loves you, whatever, you just got to ride it. And so
Well, so essentially, like when we started Raw, the very first thing on Raw was and everywhere it hit social media like a couple hours before Raw, but the very first time that they will have a women's main event at WrestleMania. I mean, that's
oh yeah.
what like undeniably the biggest thing in pro wrestling for the last like 10 years, I would have to say. Like women main eventing WrestleMania, like to be honest, right now outside of Kofi and Daniel Bryan, the women are my most like driving force as to what I'm watching week to week. I like am so impressed with watching the girls, and then like I love when they get on the mic and slay it. And that is something that I think is a lot of the reason why Becky Lynch is kind of where she's at, because the gimmick is getting over, and that's definitely cool too. But it won't die, and it won't die because she consistently gets on the mic and makes it good. And Ronda, it is sometimes she fumbles, but she fumbles because she's feeling it. And I think I can really see like hatred. And then you see Charlotte just every single time killing it on the mic, like every time,
Yeah.
no matter what happens when she gets a microphone in front of her face, she can clearly give you everything and you will understand it, feel it. All ages can feel it. All types of people can feel it. And her character is definitely has zero blurred lines. She is 100% the heel right now, and it's great. I'm loving it. But what do you think about first ever women's main event at WrestleMania?
Well, I think it's pretty cool actually because when I live in the Dallas, Texas area, so they every year for the Super Bowl, the radio guys here, they go down to Radio Row and they interview crazy amounts of people. Like, there's one of the producers on there. He's like a big time wrestling fan, and so he got Charlotte Flair on there, and Charlotte, they had asked her a question like, oh, have you ever called in sick or have you ever been late? And she said, oh, not in this business. They're like, "Oh, what do you mean by that?" She's like, "You don't main event WrestleMania if you do things like that." And so she was kind of like foreshadowing a little bit, like, "Oh, we're really pushing for that main event for WrestleMania." Whether or not she knew it, it was like happening. So I just think the overall idea um, of women main eventing WrestleMania, it's awesome. My wife was in the living room with me, I think 2 weeks ago, and she was like, "Oh, I can't believe you're watching this chick wrestling." And I told her, I was like, we've come a long way since Tori Wilson and Trish Stratus and all that. No disrespect to them, but for them, it was like, hey, we're in bikinis and we got big boobs and all that stuff. But the quality of wrestling isn't even close to what it is now. Like Charlotte Flair's a like freak athlete, and that's one thing that people don't really understand. She is a legit athlete, and even Ronda, for like being as new as she is so good at what she does. like people might get annoyed with kind of like her gimmick of like, oh look, I'm gonna get you in an arm bar, I'm gonna do all these judo throws and all that stuff, and that might be a little bit annoying to like the real like hardcore wrestling fans. But like for me, I look at it and I say, well, she's doing a very good job. How long has she been wrestling? Like a year now? Like
Yeah,
to me,
don't you think that that's a little bit um like we're a little biased to the sport because we are like look at us, we're like commentating on it, you know, for
right.
our own podcast. So like we obviously look at it like I think when you're a hardcore fan, like you can look at somebody who is like Rhonda and maybe like she is trying her best, but you can tell like, oh, she kind of slipped up there or oh, whatever. And we give her the benefit of the doubt because we know. And we're hardcore fans, but it's like to the outside viewer, like if you're snapping into wrestling and you haven't seen it since Trish, you know what I mean? And like watch these girls like Ember Moon, women, and you got to be like, oh my gosh, like, and that's what I think the WWE is really failing at right now. Like, I have not seen Ember Moon on TV. Now she may have an injury
She
or
does
whatever's
actually.
going
I
on.
actually know that for a fact. She is injured right now. She's coming back from
Yeah.
injury.
Okay. So she's not the only one, but this brings me into the second part that I was talking about. So essentially like the very first match on Raw was that little like who can win the fastest, Raw, Ronda, Charlotte, or Becky,
Oh,
right?
the I can't remember what they call those, but yeah, like you have to beat your opponent within a certain amount of time.
Well, whoever gets the first fall. So it was Ronda.
Right.
So she
Right.
sets the bar, and then they got to try to beat, you know, like Charlotte comes next. She's got to try to beat it. Then Becky comes next, and she's got to try to beat the time
So I
that
believe,
Ronda beat or
yeah,
set.
I believe Ronda set at like a minute 45 or something like that, and
Yeah,
then
but here's my thing: a minute 45. Now, if I were to tell you before Raw happened that Ronda is going to set the bar at a minute and 45 seconds for a defeated opponent, and there was three girls that were in this, what three girls would you think that they were going to be wrestling and there's a win at 1 minute and 45 seconds in?
oh, like someone who's like a jobber, not anyone who's like a player for real. Like
Yeah, but
if you would
instead
have told me like, oh, Ronda's gonna be fighting
Dana Brooke,
like yeah, Dana Brooke, I'd have been like, oh, okay, well
Alicia Fox.
yeah, someone like that. Those are like jobbers. So I feel like they would get them fairly quickly based off of like what Rhonda has already done in the business. But for the people that they had, I was like, that's, I don't know. I felt weird about it because I was like, man, that's kind of like disrespectful to them. You know,
Yeah,
I was like,
so let's give our I mean, honestly,
bearing it.
who's listening to this if you're not a wrestling fan, but instead they go over on the Riot Squad. And like the Riot Squad, they're a group of three girls that are clearly a tier ahead and also just one tier below the complete main eventers of the women's division.
Right.
I
I
would
agree.
say they're even on the same tier, if not a tier ahead, as a over group than like a Mandy Rose. And Mandy Rose is a B lister on SmackDown. So there's like only one or two girls that are ahead of her on SmackDown, which is going to be Asuka and Charlotte. Outside of that, Mandy Rose is essentially one of the best things that they got going on. And I think that the Riot Squad together, as an over group, are better than Mandy, you know, as far as what they're doing together. And then that's who the WWE decides to squash. What and was it a squash? I mean, how is it not a squash at 1 minute and 40 seconds? And then Charlotte comes next and she gets a tap at fucking 1 minute and 43 seconds or something like that. And it just,
Right.
oh, just a second off. And so, and then Becky comes in, wins the match in under 1 minute and 40 seconds and beats Ronda's time. And it's like, oh my gosh, these are three girls that are great and elite at the Riot Squad, and they just completely squashed them. What do you like? Why? What, give me. Can you give me a reason why the WWE would do something like that?
Well, I
So
basically have.
obviously, we're saying that we don't like it, right? We're
Yeah,
saying like,
I
what are you
definitely don't
doing,
like it.
WWE?
So I've seen this happen before with within the WWE. Like there's been times where like I probably say about 6 months ago they really wanted to do like a Braun Strowman segment in the parking garage or something at the stadium that they were at, and so they sent Kurt Hawkins and like somebody else to the ring to have a one-on-one match, and they cut away from them having a match just to see Braun Strowman like beat someone up backstage or like flip a car or something like that. And I just remember thinking, look, you can say what you want about Kurt Hawkins and anyone who is like that caliber of wrestler, but that's like disrespect to send them to the ring and then just cut away from them. Like why even
Yeah,
send them to the ring? Just have you could have a guy like Elias go out there and play a stupid song and make fun of Philadelphia or whatever
if you
and
just want
then
to fill time.
yeah, and so like that's kind of like in the ballpark of how I felt about the Riot Squad. I was like, man, they're like really disrespecting these girls because like Ruby Riot can wrestle. Like she wrestled Ronda for I believe it was for the title at a pay-per-view. I'm not sure if she was a champion
Yeah, but
yet.
that was a squash too. It was
Yeah,
like
but
a.
it wasn't as bad as this one. It wasn't a minute 45. And
I
so
think
I'm
it
like,
was. I think it was like
nah,
legit,
no
like a
way,
minute
dude.
45 seconds
They
then
they
too.
wouldn't they wouldn't put her in a match for a minute 45. That's ridiculous. On a
Yeah.
pay-per-view? That's
Well,
wild.
Sarah Logan too. Sarah
Yeah.
Logan, like
Yeah, but it's
she
just
could
like
break
that.
up she could break off the Riot Squad and be a legit contender on her own. Same with
I
Ruby.
agree.
Liv couldn't, not right now at
No,
least.
not yet.
But again, her character's over. Like Liv is the Harley Quinn of WWE, and if they really gave her the time, she probably could get her singles character over too. Like,
I feel like Liv Morgan, if you kind of repackaged her a little bit, I feel like you could almost put her in a situation where if you like made her a little bit darker, she could be like a Sister Abigail type situation. Like
like I,
she could play that role if necessary for the Wyatt family.
what I would what I would like to see happen with Liv Morgan, and this is just off topic, but what might be cool to see is if Liv Morgan went from this like Riot Squad character where she was Harley Quinn to all of a sudden this uh like this super fine 10 out of 10 blonde chick, just there like Mandy, like just super fine. Like if they made a transition from dark to light with Liv, I wonder if it could work. And then she could come off as just this like um, snobby, like hot chick and who would
Well,
be good in the ring.
what's interesting about that is like you could take Liv and Mandy and then pair them with like an Alexa Bliss and have them all be like the same type of person.
Like the Mean
But
Girls.
yeah, they could just be like the mean girls and they could be going around shaming everyone, constantly complaining about why they don't get a fair shake and all that stuff. And
So
you know,
let's go back to the women's main event. Actually we're gonna leave that. We're gonna leave that for our next cast because our next wrestling cast is not just gonna be the next week's SmackDown and Raw recap, but it's gonna be a WrestleMania preview. So
right.
we'll get into that. But basically WWE, you suck for squashing the Riot Squad. Could have been anybody else in there, and you just continue to make Ruby Riot look like a just not even worthwhile. Which is fine if that's what you want to do, but I hate it. So, next turn, how good is Leo Rush?
Dude, he's crazy because he is like a like freak athlete. Every time you see him like out there like there's someone bigger who's in the ring with him. He's like dancing all over the place, backflipping off his stuff, and like I feel like the WWE hasn't really tapped into like what he can really do yet either, which is exciting as like someone like I'm a consumer of the product, obviously, just like you are, and so like being a consumer, it's like man, I wonder where they're gonna go with him because eventually they're gonna make him and Lashley split. you know. So
But
when
why would they even do that? Because to be honest, the route that they could go with Bobby Lashley, they're putting the Intercontinental title on him just because, like, if they don't, then what are they going to do with him? You know, like, he can't be having these soft feuds. Like, Bobby Lashley and Lio Rush is so grade A, like, in every which way. I could see a solid 1 year long storyline between Bobby, Leo, and Seth Rollins. I mean, if Seth goes over on Brock, which is probably not going to happen, um, if he does and he gets the belt, like, who's that good guy going to defend that belt against? Here's the thing: you don't want him to lose the belt, okay? Because you just put it on him, right? So you just got it off a heel that you've had the belt on a heel for quite a long time. You barely see the belt, so we're now going to choose to take the whole entire company to a different direction. So you need a good heel. Drew McIntyre is a great heel for a world title, but Bobby Lashley and Lio Rush, man, if you just put Bobby in 3 to 6 month storyline with Seth Rollins, where you actually get creative enough so that you're not seeing them just do the same thing, that could culminate in a really, really nice match. Summer, maybe you just do it from WrestleMania to SummerSlam. Maybe that's fine. Maybe you go from WrestleMania to WrestleMania. All I'm saying is, if I saw Lio Rush less than I saw him right now, I would be so disappointed going past WrestleMania. You need to see those guys 2 times as much as you're seeing them now, because they are such a good tandem together.
Yeah, it's funny because you can kind of tell that Bobby Lashley doesn't care to be on the mic that much. Um, I think he knows he's not good at it, but he also knows that, like, if Lio Rush is there, he's like the prime guy that you want there, you know. He's kind of the scapegoat in a lot of situations. Um, I would actually really, really like to see a Seth Rollins, Bobby Lashley for the Universal Championship, and I'd see that feud go for a while. That'd be awesome. Like, I'm down for that always, because like Bobby Lashley's enough of an athlete to be able to, you know, he could be there in certain spots. Like, that's kind of like the stigma with like bigger guys that are usually Lashley size, is they can't hang with a little bit of a smaller guy who's really athletic. And so Rollins is like that perfect guy that, you know, he's like the Rollins is the mixture between a muscle, you know, kind of just throw you around, toss you around type of guy, and the
And
athlete.
Finn Balor.
Right.
Yeah,
So,
he's Seth Rollins is literally the love child of Drew McIntyre and Finn Balor.
right. That's,
Like, you get
yeah.
overarching power, and then you get really incredible speed and agility.
Right.
And that's exactly why you can put the title on Seth for a long time, and I definitely understand it. But for some, I don't know if it's just because we see him too often, or he's just been a face. I mean, like, his feud with Triple H was so good,
Yeah, I
and it's
loved it.
like, he didn't play the heel, but he had that aggression to him, and that aggression is what I need to see. And that's why I think that he won't win the title at WrestleMania, because if you put the belt on him right now, I mean, the story hasn't really got me. Like, I don't see that aggression necessarily. I just see that I'm a good guy, Seth, coming to take the title from bad guy Brock. Like, there's nothing that I feel like I've been just really itching to see with those two. I would rather like a Drew McIntyre and Seth Rollins, or even the nice, like, rather than go a completely different route than go Seth over at WrestleMania. I wish they would have put someone I wish they would have put somebody like Drew McIntyre over at WrestleMania, and then been able to come back the back door with a Seth and a Roman, like, for a number 1 contender. Really nice highlight match at WrestleMania, where you get 2 good guys, athletic. You're rooting for them both. You don't know what could happen, and then one of them gets a chance to start the climb after WrestleMania. Or again, you put Bobby Lashley and Seth Rollins in just a match. You take the title off of Bobby, and get it to Finn. Finn's way better as an Intercontinental Champion anyway, but
Yeah.
that's I think. What do you think about Finn? Is I was not watching wrestling when they finally gave him the world championship, but oh my gosh, that was a big decision for WWE to put the title on Finn, and I can't believe he got hurt.
Yeah, so I had knew about him for maybe like a couple of months when he was in New Japan, just because I had some friends that were like big time into New Japan, and they were like, "Oh, you should check this kid out," and not knowing that I didn't know who he was or whatever, and so I checked him out. I'm like, "Yeah, he's pretty good," and then he went to NXT right after that, and I was like, "Oh, that's sick that he's in NXT," but you know, who knows how long you're going to be in NXT. Like a guy like AJ Styles came and he didn't go to NXT. He just came straight through. And there's not a whole lot of guys that come straight through. And so, um,
Talking about Seth?
no. When AJ Styles showed up, he
Oh
didn't.
yeah,
Yeah, but I mean, he was already like a hot commodity. He was considered like the number one free agent at the time,
yeah.
like of
He
all
had been wrestling
wrestlers.
everywhere for all time. I mean, yeah,
Yeah.
he's a guy you can slot right in.
Yeah, so that's what I was saying about Finn Balor is like he can't like he had to go through NXT. Like they weren't gonna let him go like another way. And so like just the whole like demon aspect to his character is awesome because he doesn't bring it out all the time, which is like one of my favorite things about it. It like keeps it true. It keeps you excited about it. You're like,
Demon's undefeated still.
yeah. So like you see the demon and you're like, oh man, this is like going down for real. And so like I like the guy. I mean, obviously he has the look. I mean, he's like completely shredded. He probably has less than 6% body fat, which is completely wild. Um Probably even less than that, probably less than 4%. But anyway, um
Man crushing over here.
yeah, dude, he's like everything that like Vince loves as far as like wrestlers go. He's got the athleticism. He's got an
But he
accent.
doesn't have the size Vince loves.
Yeah, he Vince is like a giant, obviously, but um, it was just cool to see him get his shot, man. I mean, because when he came to the main roster, he had a lot of hype behind him. I mean, deserved, obviously. I think it's deserved. Um, but when he was able to win the Universal title, I was like, man, sweet. Like I remember thinking when it happened, they're finally listening to the fans a little bit because like what fan wouldn't want that at that time? And so that was my thought behind the whole thing is like, oh, they're gonna love it. And then he comes
Especially
out.
that they put the belt on an indie guy. Really.
Right,
I mean,
right.
they pushed an indie guy through. His character was so amazing. They changed the name, and they really showed a lot. And like wrestling probably would have just been so completely different had Finn not got injured. And the fact that like that's just so much the case at WWE. You get injured and then you may never get your shot again. Like they've been trying to get Finn back, and it's just like, dude, every single time it's like it's just not working out. Um and I don't know. I mean, we'll just have to see. Another one that I'm just incredibly impressed by is Ricochet. And speaking, well, actually not speaking about Ricochet, but is Aleister Black the next Undertaker or?
Dude, I don't know, but he's awesome. And I didn't even know who he was until he was in NXT. And I saw him in NXT and I was at my buddy's house. I'm like, dude, who's that guy? He's like, oh, that's Aleister Black. I'm like, he's dope. That
Yeah.
guy's that guy's
So
legit.
him and Ricochet on NXT on Wednesday won. So now they're challenging the War Raiders at Takeover, which is on Saturday,
Yeah.
and then I believe they're in a title. Are they in the title match for Raw?
Yeah,
at WrestleMania.
against what do they call those guys? The
Fuck the Revival.
yeah, the Revival, yeah.
Yeah, I
Um,
hate those guys, but
do you
I
really?
mean, yeah, I don't like them. I see so much better. I don't know. I don't know that I don't like. I mean, okay, whatever. Fuck those guys is a little bit too much. I think maybe because they're fine. They're just it's not my style. It's
Oh,
like
okay.
I was never old school Four Horsemen guy just because I really wasn't an Arn Anderson fan, and I feel like Arn Anderson, like when you think about the Revival, Arn Anderson like is the first thing to me that like comes up in my
Well,
mind.
well, that one dude, Scott Dawson, kind of looks like Arn Anderson. And to be honest, if I'm being completely honest, I didn't really care for Arn Anderson unless he was delivering a spine buster, because that's the best spine buster you've ever seen in your life.
There you
Um,
go.
but
I'm a
outside of that, you were
high
like,
profile.
whatever.
I'm a styling and profiling guy.
Oh yeah, all of
You
us,
know what I mean?
all the time.
Yeah. So Aleister Black and Ricochet, definitely. Okay. So I think when the brand split happens, they will split. I don't think they will not win the tag titles at NXT, so they'll put over the War Raiders. They won't win the tag titles on Raw, or I mean on at WrestleMania. And then essentially, I really feel like instead of one of the NXT call-ups to get like a real big pop on Raw the next night, I think instead what we're gonna see is Aleister Black goes singles and they really make like a character a spot for him on Raw. And I wouldn't be surprised if it was literally like the very second thing. I say the second thing because we're obviously going to get Brock right first, or Ronda first, or whatever like goes on there. But right after that, I would not be surprised if they brought Aleister Black right out and just pimped his character to the masses and put him in a real legit singles like storyline. And I wouldn't be surprised if Bray Wyatt, if he starts like if Aleister Black starts talking, all of a sudden the shit goes dark, and then Bray Wyatt comes back with the Fireflies, right? And
Yeah,
freaking walks down, and then you got Aleister Black right there. The shit's dark. All you can see are the lighters and the freaking lantern, and he's just putting it right there between both guys, and then just some crazy shit. And then I get that feud all the way up until SummerSlam, with it culminating on like a cage match, or like a fucking buried alive match or something like that, or a casket match, or just something crazy um like nostalgic with dark character, or something cool like that.
yeah, like a
And that would be
old school
awesome.
buried alive match would be sick, because I
Or
remember
a
those when
boiler
I was a
room
kid.
brawl. A boiler
Yeah,
room brawl. That would be it.
are
That would be
boiler
it.
rooms even a thing anymore? I don't know,
I
but
don't know. I think it is. Um okay, so like we spent a lot of time on Raw, but real quick, just to kind of snap a couple of the stuff. Ricochet, Aleister Black, dope. Everything's dope. I am super into the Batista Triple H.
oh
I'm
my
not like
God.
overly into it, but I love the give me what I want. It's just
Huh.
fucking, I love that. And
No,
then
I'm not into any of that. Any part of Batista and
oh,
Triple H is garbage to me. Maybe 15 years ago I would have been into it, but right now I'm just like, oh my gosh.
okay, that's a take. I can understand that take. Have you seen the memes, or not the memes, but have you seen that they, um, all the mumblings coming out about the photoshopping of Batista on the poster for WrestleMania? Have you seen that?
Uh-uh. What is
Okay,
it?
get ready to look this up, everybody. Okay, but when you go and you look at the Batista Triple H WrestleMania like graphic, like the little poster graphic, go ahead, look it up on your phone right now.
Okay.
Batista, they have photoshopped it so much that they literally removed Batista's nipples. And here's the thing. Here's the thing. His nipples are removed, but it's not like it's a fucking like nobody knows about it. Like it's now like a viral thing inside the wrestling community, and they literally showed the same graphic on Raw on Monday, and you would think that they would freaking fix it, and they haven't. And it's just like such a slap in the face, because here comes the graphic on live television like a week and a half after it's already been discovered that his nipples are straight up not there. And
Oh my
it's
God, I'm looking at it
still,
right now.
yeah, yeah. So go and look at it. I can't. And here's the thing: watch out for it tomorrow on Raw too, and see if they have still not fixed it. Well, let's get off of that.
Dude,
The
that's
last thing
so I can't we can't get off of it. It's so funny.
the
They're
last,
like standing side by side and it's on Reddit and he says, so WWE airbrush Batista's nipples off his WrestleMania match card photo.
exactly. Right, right. um, so last thing with Raw, I guess I want to
Oh
say.
my God.
I know it's hilarious.
Okay, go ahead. I'm sorry. I had a
I would
moment
say
there.
like congratulations to the Hart Foundation for making it into the Hall of Fame. Um, One thing I really want to say about that is I hate it. How come I mean with all the success that Natty has had from the Total Divas show, because Natty's like a big part of that show,
Right.
and her dad has been on that show like a lot, and her
Yeah.
family. And
Yeah,
it's just
Jim
surprising to me.
Neidhart.
Yeah. It's surprising to me that it takes the dude to freaking pass away for them to be like, okay, we'll put him in the Hall of Fame. Like, don't you think like Jim the Anvil Neidhart just screams to me like a guy that's in so much pain from everything that he gave the wrestling business and Vince McMahon during his tenure. And like, what would have been so amazing is just to see him be able to give a Hall of Fame speech at the end of it all. And like, if he, and now he's dead. And now I got to see it. I got to see Natty. I got to see Bret Hart, and I got to see the disdain on Bret Hart's face for WWE, because he, even during his Hall of Fame speech, it was like, I'm up here saying these things, but I really wish it was 100% on better terms. Like, I really wish that they never screwed me in Montreal. You know what I mean?
Right.
And um and I really wish like I didn't go to WCW and get a concussion from Goldberg and then basically just fuck my entire career. And like I just like I don't even want to watch it. It's like so bad. And the same thing with China. And it's like you could have put DX in the hall 10 years ago. Like
Yeah.
realistically, if you wanted to. And so
So China's going in the hall with DX.
yes, yeah.
Okay.
And I've listened to a couple interviews with badass Billy Gunn and X-Pac, and they literally both broke into tears like during, not full tears, right, but it got emotional, like you can
Yeah.
tell. And it's like, dude, these guys actually love that chick. Like,
Yeah.
obviously she bounced from Triple H to X-Pac and like, whatever, and they were doing
Yeah.
lots of drugs and stuff. Like, that's definitely cool. But what China did for the wrestling game, and like without China, there would not be the athleticism in today's women's wrestling, I don't think. Like, if she did not try to bridge that gap from sexy star to beast ass wrestler, and like see how that can better be annotated down the road from like other wrestlers. It's like now they always look back. It's like, I want to be like China. I want to be kind of sexy. I want the cover of Playboy, but I also want to be a good wrestler. I also want to be able to be in an intercontinental match with Chris Jericho. You know?
Yeah, so I think that at this very moment, I think Nia Jax is probably thinking those things that you just said. because she's in that boat where like if China was in her prime right now, she would go to 205 Live and she'd be gorilla pressing dudes out of rings because they're nothing to her, you know. And so like Nia Jax could also do that thing. Like we saw Nia Jax, in my opinion, completely ruin the Royal Rumble. I was so mad I couldn't stand it. But like and then on Raw, she like went face to face with Dean Ambrose and was like knocking him down and all that type of stuff. So that like intercontinental type run for a female wrestler, you're right. She like China was the like pioneer for it, you know. She like set the foundation, be like, look, I've closed the gap like crazy, and now there's gonna be some women that could come in here either next year or like multiple years from now that are gonna be able to do those things and like really fight with the guys and all that stuff. And you know, I'm not really a big fan of intergender wrestling, but I mean, there is a place. If someone's a beast, they're a beast. You're not gonna be able to control it. China was a monster, and there were dudes that were straight up afraid of her.
Yeah. Yeah, like you said, like if you're not able to control it, like you can't. And that's just it. It's like WWE at that point in time, we're not controlling anything. But that's also why like Becky is such a big deal today, because WWE has their hands in every bit of the storyline. There's not, hey, go out and get yourself over. It's go out and say these things, and if you say them the right way, something might happen for you. It's not like go out there and go off script. Because if you
Right.
come back, it's like, listen, PG television, multi-billion-dollar sponsorships, you can't just go out and do whatever you're doing. See, back then, they were afraid that their company was going to go under. And so things just, they were like, listen, we got to go out there and do it. And so that's cool. But getting past Raw and into SmackDown, what are they doing with Asuka right now?
Dude, so I'm sitting there on Tuesday and I'm watching SmackDown, and then they cut to a commercial, right? And I'm like, I was kind of messing with my daughter or whatever, so I was like, oh, I didn't see what they were talking about right before that. And so I'm in the kitchen, and it comes back from commercial, and you hear like, I don't remember who the commentator is. Might have been Michael Cole, and he was like, yeah, so
Not on SmackDown.
it's not on SmackDown. Who's the main
No.
guy on SmackDown?
Tom Coop Tom Cooper, or what's his
Oh,
name?
oh, the skinny white guy, yeah, the young
He's
Michael
not.
Cole,
Yeah,
the
yeah,
the
but I
young
think
Michael
he's
Cole.
better than Michael Cole just because I enjoy listening to him a little bit better than Michael Cole. But obviously, I mean, Michael Cole's a savage. I couldn't say anything without doing it, right? If I
Right.
was able to do what Michael Cole could do, then I could say Michael Cole's not very good, but he's
No,
phenomenal. But
Michael Cole's the GOAT.
It's Tom something. Phillips,
Yeah.
Tom Phillips. That's
Yeah,
what it is.
Tom
Sorry,
Phillips. Yeah,
Tom
that's right.
Phillips. My bad, Tom
Okay.
Phillips. You're never gonna see this or hear it.
Yeah. So Tom Phillips is there and he's like, yeah, so Charlotte has a one-on-one championship match with Asuka. I'm like, what?
Yeah,
Like,
out of nowhere. Like, how did that even make sense?
yeah.
Or why?
And so I'm sitting there, I'm like, in my head, I'm thinking one of two things is happening. Either Charlotte's gonna straight up win this title right now and take it into that match at WrestleMania, or they're gonna and they could still have her win, and then they could somehow try and bring Asuka into the fold to make it a fatal four way for WrestleMania. But I started thinking, I'm like, man, Asuka can definitely wrestle with every single one of these chicks. But the problem is, Asuka can't get on the mic like the other three can. But that's the thing. If they add it the week before WrestleMania, like SmackDown's gonna be the last thing you see before WrestleMania, right? So
Right.
like they could add Asuka without ever having to put her on the mic. And so
Well,
I'm
that's true too. I guess Oscar could come. Yeah, that's something you know what? Because I've not even thought about that. I just thought the second that Charlotte and Oscar, I was like, okay, well, Charlotte's going to win this because not only have they just so poorly booked Oscar in the last since Royal Rumble,
right,
this is just destined to be what they're gonna do. They're not gonna do shit for Oscar right now, and they're just gonna mail it in. That's what they're gonna do. They're gonna mail it in for Oscar for the last, you know, couple months into WrestleMania because they just frankly, number one, they don't have anything for her. Number two, SmackDown and the women on SmackDown are legit not very entertaining.
Well,
Mandy is, but
I think they have too many stars on Raw and not enough on SmackDown. We talked about this before, like offline, off of a podcast, obviously, but we talked about. I basically said I think that when you bring the SmackDown Championship to the match at WrestleMania, it now brings a little bit of legitimacy back to the SmackDown Championship because before this that championship wasn't going to be defended. And I'm like, that's so stupid. Like, you should defend every title at WrestleMania. Every single title that is there should be defended at WrestleMania or like Survivor Series or something like that. It should be defended. There's just like not even like, especially one like the women's championship. And it's not like there's not women to be on SmackDown to be able to do that. But it's like WWE has their A list of women athletes that they want to be in the championship picture on Raw, and then they also have a B list on Raw, and they have like a D list on SmackDown. They have Asuka, they have Carmella, they have Mandy Rose, and then who else do they really have on SmackDown that could really even compete? In
Feel
your
the
waist,
Glow. Feel the
yeah,
Glow could
yeah,
compete,
Naomi,
but not really.
yeah, Naomi, but like, what is she really gonna do? Because she hasn't been known for her skills on the mic or anything like that. But then when I look at it, I'm like, oh, okay, so on Raw, you're wasting two uh female
Two-thirds of the
wrestlers,
hard, good talent
yeah,
for
on the
a
SmackDown
fucking
Championship,
sorry
tag team champions, and
for
so
a
like,
loss. You
yeah,
you you put the Riot Squad, which has two of the better women in like Sarah Logan and Ruby Riot. Like honestly, on their own, they could be. Maybe that's the problem. Maybe you have too many factions, and like Sasha and Bailey tag team. Well, there goes two of your
so
freaking.
yeah, that's what I was getting at. I was saying like, hey, you have Bailey and Sasha who are both um multiple time women's champions. I know they've both held it. I don't know if they've both held it multiple times. I know Sasha has, but I don't know if I think Bailey only had one, maybe two runs with the title. I don't remember exactly, but um, those are two women who could be primetime players on SmackDown, challenging for that title. And you're over here like, oh, let's make them the like first ever like women's tag team champions. That's cool and all, but you could you could use those women's tag team champions and put it on someone else who really needs time to build their character. Bailey is established, Sasha is established and way over, and Bailey's like the top of like baby faces for women's wrestlers. The fans love her because she's looked at as kind of like a common folk type of person, like, oh, I was that kid. Because WWE keeps using those pictures from when she was like 8 years old and she was like meeting Austin and The Rock and Bret Hart and all these.
Yeah,
And so like she's over like crazy because people she's so relatable. And then I mean, I just feel like you got Oscar over here who's ready just to like destroy anybody, but you can't even get her with Carmella because you've put Carmella with R-Truth, who I'm pretty sure has no idea what year it is.
and Carmella and Asuka did have their thing before they went. She went to R-Truth, and
Right.
so you threw you literally booked yourself into a corner because after fucking Royal Rumble, you had nothing for Asuka. And so embarrassingly enough, you had nothing for Asuka, but what you especially didn't have is any you or no, not what especially you didn't have, but what you chose to do with Asuka instead of put her in anything, you kept her off TV. The second she beat the biggest uprising star in WWE as far as women right now, Becky Lynch, she made her tap, and then you didn't see her like for 2 weeks at least.
Right.
And so,
And as far as I
what
know, there was no injury or anything. They just straight up just didn't have her on
they had
TV.
nothing for
Because
her.
yeah, this podcast I was listening to, a wrestling podcast, they were talking about, they're like, where's Asuka, dude? Like, does she have the title? Oh, she does? Okay, why is she not on TV every single week? Even if you just see her backstage or even if you just see her cutting a promo, she needs to be on TV because she's the champion. That's ridiculous.
Well, and she can't even cut the promo, and That's the problem, right?
Well,
So it's like
well, it's not.
you
It's not even
couldn't do
so
that.
much that. It's like she's got a massive just language barrier. She doesn't speak English very well, so
Yeah.
it's kind of difficult for her.
What they need to do is they need to quit fucking around with some of these girls, and they need to bring them up. Like Rhea Ripley is the most boss chick out there. Bring
Yeah.
her up, let her play a Drew McIntyre type character, because she's somebody who could go after Nia Jax, and essentially that would be a big match. Tony Storm, Shayna Baszler, um,
So Rhea Ripley's that like super tall chick, right?
yeah, NXT
She
UK.
showed up. She showed up at the Royal Rumble and was
Yeah, and she did
wrecking
great.
shop. Yeah, she did
Yeah,
really.
and then that chick that can do that 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 the pirate princess or whatever her name is that won the oh gosh, now I'm the Mae Young Classic last year.
Oh yeah, yeah, the Japanese chick.
Yep.
Yeah,
And Kairi Sane is her name. And
yeah.
Casey Catanzaro
Dude,
also.
that's Ricochet's girlfriend you're talking
I
about. Right
know, I know. Don't tell Ricochet.
there.
But okay, wrapping this podcast up, we cannot do it without a review of what they did for KofiMania.
Yeah,
It's
yeah,
running
for sure.
wild. It's running wild. Um, it fell flat for me on SmackDown. I would have really enjoyed Kofi getting his deal, and all of a sudden Vince McMahon comes out and says, "Well, Kofi, you can't try anymore, so we're gonna make your boys try." Well, it's like, well, you clearly came out the last 2 weeks and tried to thwart his going to WrestleMania, and then the first thing you want to do once he lost, like essentially twice, his shot, you come out and say, okay, I'll give you one more shot. Well, it's like, well, that's completely against the logic of what you've been doing. Like, it wasn't like you were fucking like giving him shots. Like, he was taking those shots, and then you were deliberately putting roadblocks in his way. And then you told him, okay, you get no more shots. Oh, wait, but you actually do get one more shot here with your boys in a tag team gauntlet. And it made no sense to me. But stoked that he's in. um Big E and what's his name? I forgot off the top of my
Xavier.
head. Xavier
Xavier.
Rhodes. They did really well. I mean, in the ring, they're great. I think they are the better tag team than I think Kofi has always been the third wheel to that tag team, because I always felt like the better tag team was the big and the little guy. And so like that to me in tag team wrestling has a lot better way of going in every match, where you get really strong with a couple of really good speed. And so I always thought that Kofi was a third wheel. And I think that's why he has not really gotten over in a singles run at any point in the last 13 years. So I love the storyline, as far as Kofi being the one in. I like it so much because he obviously he's an underdog, but he's an underdog because Mustafa Ali got hurt. And so it wasn't like he was even supposed to be in the match. And so it actually really worked, with the idea that, oh, Kofi's all of a sudden in this match. He's already the underdog in the match. And then now the crowd has gotten behind him so much that he's forcing his way in, and everything works in the storyline. Then Vince McMahon just comes out and shits all over it. Low key racism, like
Yeah.
thoughts going throughout the whole entire like wrestling community, which is not good news. Like, you
Right.
don't want that for publicity. Like, hey, is this potentially racist? Like, that is literally what everybody is saying, and it's not a good look. And so it just fell flat for me. I don't know. I'm excited that they're gonna have the match. I'm excited they're back in. They and I really loved the Uso thing. Usos come out, they put the New Day over, and then forfeit the match. Again, could have been done better. Like, they could have gone right in. They could have locked up for a Russian tie, and then bloop, lay down. It would have been great. I mean, it would have been a real fuck you to everybody and everything. But all right, it worked out, and Kofi's in. I mean, how did you? I mean, did it fall flat for you? Like it felt. I don't know. You can tell by my voice that I'm not. I'm not into it. It could have been done so much better that I would have been like, oh man, like Kofi is in, like yes. And instead, it was just kind of like, oh wow, he's all of a sudden in now.
Right. So like I felt kind of weird about it because, you know, you do so basically what happened, Vince McMahon comes out, says, okay, you know, you guys got to go through this tag team gauntlet match. And if you beat all the teams, then Kofi's in, right? So you know, they're fighting all these guys and all that stuff, and then the Usos come out, and I agree that was kind of weird. They could have just, you know, it could have been something funny where it's like, oh, you poke them in the chest and they fall down, they're just like unconscious,
Exactly.
and then you like lay down on them. Um, the whole writing behind it is what has really kind of like weirded me out. Is like why it's almost like they're trying to like set up for something big, but if I know the WWE like I know them, they're going to take all the weird steps to set up for something big, but not actually do something big. So it's just been weird. Like, oh no, you're not out because you didn't beat Daniel Bryan, and then this next time comes and they're like, oh, but this tag team's gonna beat Daniel Bryan and what's that guy's name? Eric Rowan.
Yep.
Yeah, and trap Eric Rowan underneath this announce table so he can't get back into the ring, and then you'll win. Um, it just all seems weird. And then the last thing that weirded me out was I can't remember the girl, but she walked. She was the one with the microphone that interviewed Vince as he was leaving, and Vince was getting into his limo, and she said, "Oh, so Kofi's going to WrestleMania to face Daniel Bryan for the WWE Championship," and he says, "Kofi's going to WrestleMania," and then he got in his limo. He didn't say that he was facing Daniel Bryan. He just said Kofi's going to WrestleMania,
Yeah,
and
I think
so
what would be a
so
really nice. Well, but they've marketed though that it's Kofi versus
I
Daniel.
understand that, but Vince could make a call behind the scenes, be like, "Hey, market it like that," and then on Tuesday we're gonna get the real switch, or we're gonna get the real whatever, you know.
What do you think would be the real switch? I have
So
an
like,
idea.
so you could do a thing where you go into the last SmackDown. This is the last time you're gonna see WWE before WrestleMania, and
Yeah,
so
Tuesday.
Kofi rolls in there and he's on cloud nine, and Vince is like, well, if you don't do these things, then I'm going to strip you of your opportunity. And
Yeah,
so
I think
Vince can
Vince.
mess with him the whole show before he finally says okay, and then it could really lead into WrestleMania. Like he could, you kind of like how on Raw, how they constantly tease Elias with his guitar and stuff like that. He has 3 or 4 different spots during the show. You could do that with Kofi during WrestleMania. Like, oh, Kofi has to
Yeah,
do this,
yeah.
Kofi has to
I
do
think
that,
maybe.
and then he finally gets his match.
I think maybe that you could do that. That would be an interesting thing. But here's the thing: WrestleMania is already like 17 freaking matches long. You're gonna add 4 spots, and maybe like a match in an extra match in WrestleMania just to get him there. I think maybe what they could do is put him in the Andre the Giant Battle Royal.
And
Like,
be
yeah,
like,
you're going.
you have to win this in order to get your title shot.
Yeah, that would work because they
Yeah, that'd be
already
cool.
have that match planned. That actually would be a really great thing. But they've already kind of set that up as a huge gimmick for Braun Strowman and those two
The
Saturday
battle
Night Live
royal
guys.
itself.
Yeah.
Yeah, well,
But I'm
they haven't
wondering,
even announced that many people for it. Have you noticed that? There's
well, it's
the
because
names
they're
that are
making
out.
it all about Braun. I mean, I
Yeah,
think that's why it's kind of lame. But if they did put Kofi in there, and then all they did was squash Braun, like the Saturday Night Live guys came out and they like tar and feathered him or something, and he
yeah,
like eliminates himself just by running after these guys.
yeah.
Uh, That would be cool. And then Kofi comes in and wins that bitch, and then goes on to Daniel Bryan. That would be cool.
Yeah, because
But
that battle royal is typically earlier on the card than it is later.
it has to be. But
Yeah.
anyway, that's our wrap up of Raw and SmackDown this week. So here's what we got going on. We're going to have our WrestleMania preview show. We probably will try to have that on Friday, have it come out on Saturday, right before New Japan and NXT TakeOver and WrestleMania. That show's going to have our predictions. We're going to do our prediction show, and we're going to see who wins and see who loses. Everything's always a game for me. I'm an aggressive winner of games. Nobody in my family likes playing Monopoly with me because, and they all end up getting it. It's completely not fun to play Monopoly anymore with my family.
Are you talking about like your wife and your daughter, or like extended family?
My wife and her dad, and then her brother, and me. And so at the beginning,
I bet they're just sick and tired of you.
They hate
They
hate
see you
me.
coming around a board game. They're like, oh God, here we go.
Not this guy again. Yeah. No, they don't like playing with me. And then, so again, this is a network of podcasts. So this is going to be our wrestling cast. We're going to do that. We might have a couple guests on for the wrestling cast, but generally it's probably just going to be me and you. And then we're going to have a football cast. Maybe just me sometimes. Maybe it's you sometimes. Maybe it's me and you. Maybe we got guests. Maybe whatever. And then, so we're going to have to record one of those this week too. I would say probably like a Tuesday or Wednesday. We're going to have to buckle one of those in. And
Wednesday would work solid. That'd be a solid day.
Yeah. Launch it in. But other than that, ladies and gents, you have yourself a good night.